Hello there. My name is Josue Diaz. I am a licensed architect in the state of California. And in this episode of Archi Corner, I am going to be doing something special. I haven't done this before. It'll be the first time that I go through the questions that are put in some of the videos and see if I can give you some quick answers. So if you want to hear some of these answers, don't go anywhere. You're about to find out. All right, so let's not waste any time here. Let's jump right to it. So I'm going to go through some of the questions here. And starting off, I see a question from Maria Allgood. Her question was pertaining to episode number 19 that deals with ADA requirements for restroom fixtures. And her comment states, "Great video. Thank you. I appreciate it. What is the code requirements for the urinal partition?" Well, that's a good question. Urinal partitions don't necessarily have a code requirement. They can be as tall, as wide, as deep as you want them to be. However, the depth of the partition does affect the clear width at your urinal. If it's 24 inches or less, your urinal can be 30 inches wide, or the clear access to it. But if you're deeper than 24 inches, then that floor clear width will have to be 36 inches wide. I hope that answers your question. Again, not necessarily a requirement for urinals, but the partitions can affect other things, which in this case is floor clearance. I see another question by Maria as well. Maria Allgood, on episode 13 that has to do with egress and how many exits are required from a space, her comment states, "This is great info. Again, thank you. Does it matter if the building is sprinklered or not for exit quantities?" The short answer is no. In the IBC, the number of exits is determined by the occupant load. However, other things are affected, like for example, travel distances. And if you're not able to meet those requirements, like a travel distance, then that might trigger another exit. But specifically to the number of exits because you're not sprinklered, again, no. The IBC determines the number of exits by occupant load. Let's look for another question here. In Archi Corner episode number 11, where it talks about egress and how to calculate egress width, the comment from Lynn Atwood states the following. "Is stairway width calculated from wall to wall or from inside face of stringers for a flight of egress stairs?" That's an excellent question. Normally, as it relates to egress, the clear width of stairs is required by the stringers. However, if the building is not sprinklered, then it's determined between handrails. So again, if it's not sprinklered, it's between the handrails. If it is sprinklered, it's to the width of the stair itself, which is normally the stringers. I hope that answers your question. Let's look for another question. This comes from Fakir Al-Bobali. I really hope I said that, and if I didn't, I apologize. But he is making a comment in video number AC33 or episode 33, which talks about accessory occupancies. What are they? His comment says the following. "Hi. Recently, I was calculating the allowable area per section 506.2.4 of the IBC 2018. Imagine me as a contractor. I was explaining to the designer that the building allowable area shall not be taken straight out from table 506.2, as AT is a factor, which will be used in a certain equation. Anyhow, the buildings were mixed occupancy with 3 stories only, and the designer was telling me that this code section applies to buildings with more than 3 stories only." So let me take a look at what this section states here. So no, this section 506.2.4 titled Mixed Occupancy Multi-Story Buildings, this can apply to any building that is more than 1 story in height. However, I think the confusion is coming from the extra requirements if the building is in fact more than 3 stories. There is an extra requirement where you take the area factor of each floor and it cannot exceed 3. So again, that section, you are correct. It can apply to any building that's more than 1 story, but there is another requirement if it's more than 3. So as long as you stay under that factor of 3, you're okay. Or actually, as long as you don't you don't exceed it, right? I hope that answered your question. Going on to the next question. So another comment here is by Marcia Bomeister. I hope I said that right. Again, I'm sorry if I didn't. In episode number 27 that talks about the IBC requirements and what is the required distance between exit doors, she has the following comment. Hi, great videos. Thank you. Can you tell me if there's a limit on the distance between the exit door of one tenant and the exit door of an adjacent tenant, if both are accessed by the same corridor? So no, there is no requirement. If one tenant is completely separate from another tenant, obviously they're going to have their own exits, right? So this tenant's going to exit into the corridor and this tenant's going to exit into the corridor. So if their exit is right next to each other, that's okay. There's no problem with that, so long as they're separate tenants. In other words, their areas are completely separated, the one from the other. I hope that answers your question. Let's go on to another question. So George Y, in episode 29, that is titled Number of Exits and Travel Distance and Common Path to Travel, has this comment. Hi, ArchiCorner. These videos are really helpful. I hope they are. Thank you. In a previous video, you separated a building by different room occupancy types. When calculating travel distance requirements per 1006.2.1 and building sizes, should we pick an occupancy that matches the general use of a building even if some rooms in the building have different classifications? Well, let me take a look at this. You have two separate questions here. If you're talking about building sizes, then you're talking about, making sure you align the occupancy group with the right building type. And just because you have different areas in a building that is classified as another group doesn't necessarily mean you have two occupancy groups. A quick example of that is if you have a conference room inside an office, normally that would be an A3 inside a B occupancy group. However, it depends on how big your conference room is. If your conference room is less than 50, normally it stays within the occupancy it's in. In this example, if it's within a B occupancy, it stays classified as B. If it was in a educational group, it would be classified as E. So this is an example where a conference room, even though it could potentially be an A3, it may still be classified as another occupancy group. Once it reaches 50 occupants, then yes, you would have a mixed occupancy building where you have A3 and B. And yes, that would affect the building size that you have. As far as travel distances, again, you have to think about the group that you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a B, then yeah, you're going to have to make sure you comply with that occupancy group. And if you have mixed occupancies in that building, you do have to meet the travel distances for that individual occupancy group. So to recap really quick, if you do have mixed occupancy groups in a building, then each group has to make sure that it complies with its requirements, such as you noted here, travel distances. Each occupancy group would have to meet that requirement. And the building size, if it's a mixed occupancy group, then you would have to make sure that that mixed occupancy complies with the area that's allowed by the building type. I hope that answers your question. So next question. Maria Uberes. I hope I said that right. Again, I'm sorry if I didn't. She left a comment in episode number 25 where it talks about USF and RSF and what the basics of BOMA are. Her comment states, great video. Thank you. Are load factor and efficiency factors generally the same thing? Are they interchangeable? Well, it depends on who's classifying these terms, right? I mean, the video was talking about BOMA. So from a BOMA perspective, when you take a load factor, if you compare that to an efficiency factor from real estate, for example, most real estate language, when you refer to a efficiency factor, then that's typically the same. You have your rentable square feet divided by your usable square feet, and BOMA calls that your load factor. In real estate, that might be your efficiency factor. So in that instance, yes, it would be the same thing. But again, it depends on who's determining these terms. And in this case, if it's BOMA in real estate, then you're good. The next question, let's see. Octrong, I hope I said that right. In episode number 24, which talks about the different items in the building like girders, beams, and joists. He made the following comment. Please make more videos. They are very educational. We are trying, but don't worry, more videos will be coming up. I would hope that you do a video explaining what the differences between fire partitions, fire barriers, firewalls, etc. are. I did create a video that talks briefly about this subject. There's going to be a link to that video popping up. Go ahead and take a look at it. It's not very detailed per se, but it will give you a starting point because it does talk about fire ratings in a wall. Hopefully that guides you in the right direction. Let's go on to the next question. James Joist, in episode number 32, that talks about occupancy separations. The comment states, great video. Can the occupancies be connected with doors with same rating as the wall? The short answer is yes. You can have different occupancy groups have a different requirement for walls. And if the wall is required to be fire rated, yes, you can have a fire rated door. It happens all the time. As for what rating that door needs to meet, if you take a look at a table here, let me check. Hold on. If you take a look at table 716.1 parentheses 2, you'll find some information on the rating of the doors that are allowed in these types of applications. But short answer is yes, you can have doors between occupancy groups. I hope that answers your question. Let's look at another question here. The next one is from Francisco Ordaz. I hope I said that right. In episode number 24, which talks again about the difference between girders, beams, joists, and other things. His comment states, I don't know if you can cover this, but can you tell me what makes a truss girder? I was trying to be funny when I responded to him. I did respond to him in a comment and I said, what makes a truss girder is a big machine in a factory somewhere and a bunch of people that can put stuff together. That's what makes a truss girder. But I hope you caught that as a joke. It was meant to be funny. But to get a little bit more serious, there's two things here that are being mixed up. The truss and the girder. One is a component or a thing like a door or a window. And the other is how it's being used. In other words, you can have a truss beam, you can have a truss joist, you can have a truss girder. It all depends on how that truss is being used. In that video that you left this comment on, I was talking about how a 2x4 can be used as a joist, as a rafter. Same thing with trusses. Trusses can be used for different things. So in your question, you basically asked, what is a truss girder? Again, the answer is, it's basically a truss that is being used as a girder. I'm not even going to get into the different trusses because there's a bunch of different types of trusses too. But I think that is the basic answer. I hope it helps you. Well, guys, for now, that's where I'm going to leave it at. I hope these are enough questions to get you going. I can't provide a video for every single question, but hopefully this is one way where I can provide multiple answers without having to make you guys wait for a video. If you liked this session, please let me know. Give me your comments as to what you liked or didn't like. And if you have more questions, go ahead and put them on the videos. I do read them, and as much as possible, I try to respond to them. If you liked the video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe. If you think that others would like this video or other videos in the Archi Corner channel, please feel free to share a link with them. And one last thing, if you would like to support me, I do have a Patreon account. So go check out my Patreon account. You'll see that there's plenty of stuff there that you can't find here. Again, you'll see the information down on the video below. In the meantime, I will see you in my next video for Archi Corner. But for now, this is Archi Corner signing out.